What is up, everybody? I'm Scott Evans, and I could not be more pleased to be joining my man, Justin, for the Man of the Hour podcast. Now, I'll be honest. I'm hoping this thing lasts for a little bit longer than an hour because, I just got here. But we're talking about everything from how to challenge yourself when goal setting, how to identify who is out here to really help, and also to get clear on what you are here to really do. So come join us, come be a part for this. Hopefully, we'll just come join us.
Oh, this is Scott Evans. I know we're going to get the transparent version. We're going to get the honest version. We're going to get the cool version. We're going to get all the versions that I've known him for. But I have to be very honest. This is someone that I have asked a lot of because I love sharing his story. I love hearing his story, and I love watching him on television. And Scott has made it to the top of what I believe is the prime also of his career, not just in TV hosting, but in general. He works for a fantastic company called NBCU. Hosts numerous shows, including Access Hollywood, Access Daily, America's Big Deal. I know all this stuff because I've also had to work with people who sold your shows. So it's like our worlds have been so close together anyway. But Scott, for saying yes, for trusting me with this conversation, and ultimately always continuing to say yes. Thank you.
First, thank you for thinking enough of me to want to keep having these kinds of conversations, and to also be so tethered to sharing this kind of information with people, because you believe that no matter what room you're in, these are the kinds of lessons, these are the kinds of conversations we all can benefit from. I love that you bring this element to everything that you do. And so there will not be many things that you ask of me that I'm like, I don't know if I can do that. Just so you know. So I value what you're doing. I value your perspective and your impact. And so anything I can do to help contribute to that, I'm going to do it.
Well, you being you and having the story that you have contributes to that anyway. For some context, if you're listening, thank you for clicking play. There's kabillion podcasts out there that you could have chose, and you somehow clicked on this one. I don't know if it was a mistake or not. It was probably because Scott Evans' name was in the title.
Get out of here.
Next to the hashtag number 90, whatever he's on. But the reason I would consider you a total man of the hour, aka someone who has really stepped into a powerful place in your career, really taken it upon yourself to own the responsibility of having a massive platform, and then ultimately driving what you do with a lot of purpose, which we'll get into all of that in the next hour or so. But I want to start this conversation with how you are doing. I have not seen too much of you on social. And when I do see your stories, they're typically reshares or something super, heart-filled, and at least in what I would consider just something that you shared out of, whatever. I'm just going to post this on my story or whatever. Right. I haven't seen you on social media as much. And so I wanted to check in to see how you were doing aside from all the TV stuff.
Listen, I'm going to say this. When it comes to social media, I have to guard my mental health. I have to guard my attention. I have to guard my energy. I have to, I hold those things in high regard, and they are incredibly valuable to me. And I have discovered that my interaction on social media in particular was sometimes in direct conflict with keeping those things in a healthy balance. And so more often, recently, I have had to take some steps back, take some steps away, and refocus. And so, yeah, I don't always share, and I'm not necessarily like the overshare on social media anyway. But just some of the commentary that I was seeing on social media, on my page and other pages, some of the things that seem to be the most valuable on social media or through social media were kind of troubling to me. And so I had to take some breaks. And I encourage other people to, if you have identified the same for yourself, to feel good about that you don't have to subscribe to this thought process that if it didn't happen on social, then it it didn't happen. Like there
Mm.
was life before Instagram.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and some of us remember it fondly, you know what I mean? Um, but I I don't say that to say I don't see a value or a place for it. I just know that in my life I've had to redefine what that place is.
Mm.
But I'm doing really well. I think that ultimately I feel like I am living my wildest dream.
Hmm.
And so in a lot of ways, there is this constant, like I was driving today back from the stadium, the new SoFi Stadium, doing stand-ups for the Super Bowl. And I was just like looking over the 110 where the palm trees have continued to grow, and you just see like the little top of the palm tree, like for as long as you can see. And I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
this is where you live. This is where you live. And like, yeah, you're in traffic right now, but like, this is where you live. And you could be underground on a subway,
Uh-huh.
mad.
Uh-huh.
Not to say that that also wasn't like when I was on underground on the subway, that I wasn't like, damn, this is where you live. You're in the greatest city on the planet, in New York, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or if you're shoveling snow in the middle of the country, right? Like there's an aspect of like this overwhelming gratitude I have that is more persistent than the realization of some of the achievement that I have or have experienced
Hmm.
recently that is keeping me just in this state of like, man, I am so fortunate
Hmm.
and feel so glad to be aware of even an inkling of that.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, so that's I mean, that's where I'm at. That's where I'm spending the majority of my time, is sitting in that feeling.
That's the best feeling to be sitting in. I
Yeah.
mean,
I mean, to
and to
me,
say it out
it's
loud
like
too.
yeah, you have to say it out loud, I
Mm.
think. We say everything, we say shit all the time that doesn't matter out
Yeah.
loud. Why wouldn't
Mm.
you say that out loud?
Mm.
You know what I mean? If you can, and I can cut, I can cuss with the best of them.
Yeah.
If I can say that mess out loud, then
Yeah.
certainly I can also offer from my body to the of this, from my body, this vibration to the space around me, that I'm glad to be in it,
Hmm.
and to be a witness to it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Period. Period. Done
Here.
with the podcast. Done. Yeah, that's all. That's, I think that's what we needed. We needed to hear that you're doing well and that you're happy, and that essentially is like what people want. It's part of the reason why we, like, I started this podcast. To be
Mhm.
very honest with you, it's uncovering all of that, with friends like you, to understand like how you got to that point. And
Yeah.
so as you're looking over, you said the
The
101,
110. So
110. I was gonna
the
say,
110 is like, is one of the freeways that runs the length, right? Like it runs from like Pasadena
mm,
mountains, I believe, Pasadena all the way down to like Long Beach. I
mm.
could be wrong. I've never driven the 110 all the way, but I imagine that it is this long stretch of freeway
You have
because I was on it for a half a day today. So
That's a lot. Wait, I was gonna ask you then. So, like, as you're sitting in a car in LA, there's so many. I mean, if every single day, I'm sure. Like every time I'm out there, I don't even. I like driving out there because I'm not there. But I'm also under the, like you said, under the ground on a subway most of the time. So I'm like, oh, free air! I can like drive myself around. But in LA, who are some of the first people you think of, personally and professionally, as you're driving? Sometimes going through that, that daydream of, holy shit, I'm exactly where I'm at. I'm exactly where I want to be, where I've dreamt to be, if not further. Who are some of those first people that would come to mind,
that like inspire me or
or
that
that they
help me
make
to
you
get there?
help you get there?
So I've been really super fortunate at NBC in particular, to have some big champions of me. Chip Sullivan, who is
Mhm.
our head of marketing and public relations, um, Tommy Crump, who is
Yeah.
the
Yep.
head of talent, and like just received this crazy, not crazy, but this beautiful signal to the impact that she's had at the network with this promotion recently. Maureen Fitzpatrick, who is our EP of Access Hollywood and Access Daily. Um, uh, uh, my producers who I work with on a regular basis, writers that I work with on a regular basis, editors that I work with on a
Mm.
regular basis. So there are executives that help. There are therapists
Come
that
on.
help.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are names, like, it's so funny. This is gonna sound like name droppy, but you asked me the name, so that's why I'm bringing it up. But like Tyler Perry has been
Yeah.
an invaluable source of um, inspiration and encouragement to
Mm.
like, what is the thing that you really want to be doing?
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I was looking at buying a house in Los Angeles, I was looking in, like, I was going to buy a house in the mix. I was like, I'm going to be between WeHo
Yeah.
and Hollywood. And it's going to be great. I'm going to have like the party house. I can't wait. And I was showing him some of the property that I was looking at. This is in the height of COVID lockdown. So I'm talking like July. I start sending him some of the properties I'm looking at. And he was like, don't you think you want to, based on what we're seeing with this pandemic, like, don't you think you want to maybe not live so close to somebody else, like where you can like touch out of your window, you can touch their house? I was like, you got a point. And so I took that advice and I found this property that I live in now that is on, I mean, it is not this like palatial estate. I mean, it is the biggest place that I have ever lived in, for sure. But I can't touch my neighbor's house, out of my window. I can't hear them have a conversation. And there's something about the serenity, the peace that affords you when you're in your own space.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't smell somebody else's cooking. And I'm not saying that to say to like, right. But I say that, like, I'm not saying that to say to like look down or diminish someone else's journey or any other part of my journey that I've had. I'm saying that instead of going along with like what might be the flex, I instead decided what the biggest flex is. Like, where is your peace? Where do you find your peace? Where do you find your serenity, your solace, your sanctuary? And if you're in a position to create that for yourself now, like, that's the biggest boss move. You know what I mean? Not getting the spot that's walkable, and walking distance to the club. Like, you went to that club 4 times.
Well, you want to live there. You bring up a great point about peace. And let me ask you this now, because I had a feeling you would go to it anyway, and now I'm interrupting you to ask the question. Scott, imagine that. And you just said it. It's a big boss move to be able to make that type of decision for your home. Right? Something so tangible that you're putting money on, something you saved up all this money and you're going to buy a house. And you're going to live wherever the hell you want. Right? Money aside, tangible things aside, imagine too, you'd be able to do that with your career. 2 of the last times I'd talked with you, it's all about like early career and I'm always like, Scott, talk to the young people. And so now I want you to talk to this audience in particular, just about being able to do that in your career, making boss moves in your career. Cause I feel like people don't see it that way. But for some reason, as it might be easier to buy a house nowadays, to feel like that's something more for you to take ownership in, but then I don't hear the same things about a career.
I think that you have to be a person. The invitation I would make to anyone who is listening to this is to be a person who is willing to sit in some quiet and listen to themselves. And sometimes listening to themselves is not necessarily you ask a question and then you, okay, let me just, sometimes listening to yourself includes like journaling and like looking back to see what you wrote, over the past couple of weeks. Sometimes listening to yourself is sitting still long enough to look at and maybe reflect over some choices that you have made that have allowed you either to be in this position or caused you to be in this position, and then allow you to decide, is this the person that I want to be? Is this are these the things that I want to be repeating? Or am I missing a lesson that I'm meant to be learning? Am I making the path toward the goal that I have easier or more difficult? Am I pulling myself out of alignment with my personality and my skills, therefore pulling me out of alignment with my purpose? These are things these are ways that you listen to yourself, or hear from yourself. These are ways that you stop and you check in, right? I think you have to do the same thing professionally. I think you have to look at like, okay, cool. So this is where I work now. And these are the people that I'm surrounded by. These are the ways I'm showing up to this job. Would I promote me? You know what I mean? Would I extend an opportunity to do more, try more, or shift to me if I were my manager?
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Would I hire me to host or write or produce or develop this show based on what I'm doing now? Not my desire, but like how I'm demonstrating my
Mhm.
expertise, my perspective, or my offering. Um, you know, for me personally, there was a very small but very significant experience that I've told you about before.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've told you on a appearance or anything like that before, but I've definitely shared this moment with you before about writing myself $1 million check
Yeah.
and sharing that with Oprah and her grabbing me and being like, okay, first of all, do you want to take home $1 million, or do you want you want $1 million in the bank, or do you want $1 million earned, like a check, like your wage or your fee? And I
Mm.
was like, I want $1 million in the bank. I want $1 million in the bank. She was like, okay, so then you got to keep this check for yourself, but you got to rewrite this check
Mm.
for $1.3 million. Because then if you want $1 million, you got to give Uncle Sam his
That's right.
cut.
That's right.
Like that's a billionaire mindset, first of all. Like
Right.
the fact that you would even know what the amount was that you needed. So what's crazy to me, what's crazy to me about this right now, Justin, the thing I'm about to say is like part of me is like so guarded about talking
Mm.
about money
Sure.
and seeking money and making that the goal, because I do think that in some cases it can be dangerous.
Mm.
Not necessarily dangerous, but I think it can be misleading.
Um,
But for me, it was a mark that I wanted to cross. It was not like my end all be all, but it was like, this is something that I can work toward every day and something that I can contribute to every day,
mm.
and we'll do that.
Mhm.
And so when she told me the dollar amount, when it was time for me to renegotiate for this NBC overall development deal, that
Mm.
was the number for me that was like, we got to reach this.
Mm.
And so when they offered that number without me even saying anything, right, in conjunction with a couple of other
Yeah.
projects that I'm working on, it was just like,
Yeah.
this shit works. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not some like guru. I'm not some, I mean, don't get me wrong. I burn incense, Palo Santo, sacred
You're
wood, and stuff like that all the time. Like, don't get me wrong. Like that is me. If you walk around this house right now, you will see like ancient ritual geometric shapes all throughout the house. Like I
Yeah.
am that person, but I don't believe myself to be this uniquely positioned magical being who is the only one that can summon this kind of energy. That can
That's
only,
right. Yeah.
that I am somehow special, that I can do something that you can't do.
Mm.
And so the reason I offer this in these conversations is because I want people to like clue into the fact that like the life that you want is on the other side of your consistent and concerted effort, that you vocalize, that you share, and that you
Mm.
get a few other key people to believe with you. To, you know, some people might call them accountability partners. Some people might call them your what is it, mastermind group, or your mommy club, or
Yeah.
your boys night out, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Like if those groups aren't also helping you stay oriented toward the path of life that you want for yourself, then I would consider forming it. I
Mm.
would consider putting that your Avenger team together, and with one another figure out how to be encouraging and motivating for one another.
Mm.
And so when I saw I saw her. I saw her before the negotiation went down, or ended, I should say,
Mm.
and was like, she was like, "How we doing?" What she actually said was, "Scott, where we at? How are we doing?" And like, it was a very like clear check on like check, like we're
Check on the check.
check on the check. Where are we at, partner? And so to be able to say to her, I think we did it. She just grabbed me by my hands and was like, of course. And then said to me,
Mm.
one of the most like, I think powerful, if you're willing to look at it if you're willing to look at it this way. And now what do you have your eyes set to do?
Mm.
Right? And now what is your gaze fixed upon? Not that this was like some like big thing to celebrate now where it's over, you did
Yeah,
it.
of course.
But it
Of
was
course.
like, this is just the natural, um, uh, this is how it's done.
Mm-hmm.
How it's done. You know, in the words of, I believe Maya Angelou, I know I've heard her say it, it was time to dream a bigger dream.
Mm.
Or a new dream. She said one of them. She might have said both.
I, I I have one question, and that's what did you tell her? What did you tell Oprah when she asked you that?
What was my next thing?
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad that you asked. What I said was, I now am the most excited to be inviting friends, family, people I have met and haven't met to
Mm.
a table, to be in a position to help them tell stories that matter.
Mm.
Right? To
Yeah.
be in a to be exercising the flow, to be in the flow in a way that I am helping to create space for more of us to tell the stories that are important to us, and to continue to be a reflection of the light and the love that's been shown to me in my life, in the hopes that people who see me will become curious or comfortable enough to be
Mm.
more themselves.
Mm.
And she was like, you have like, basically it was like a life mantra. Like, I have discovered what
Mm.
it is I'm out here to do. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And gotten really clear on what it is I'm out here to do. And couldn't be more thrilled about how clear that is for me.
I love that. If you guys are watching him, and we'll pull some of the stuff for Instagram so that we could share it later, he is just lit up and happy and genuinely where he's at.
Yeah, man.
You know
Like,
what I mean? This is
I just,
weird. I caught you at
I,
your prime. Let me tell you that.
I mean, for real, like, I remember what it was like to be unable to pay my light bill
Yeah.
while being at work every day on TV.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I remember what it was like, and not because I was spending my money on the wrong thing, but because I wasn't making enough.
That's right. That's right.
Um, and I remember what it was like to leave Purdue University on a full ride scholarship, and my uncle Scott, the man I'm named after, say to me as I'm packing my car and he's watching me. I remember what it was like for him to say to me, so we're going to leave the guarantee of education for the maybe of a dream.
Mm.
And it wasn't so much that he didn't believe in me as much as he needed to. I needed that challenge.
Mm-hmm.
I needed that kind of fuel, because that's ultimately what that conversation became. It was
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, the way that conversation ended is that he said to me, well, then the next time I see you, you better be famous.
Correct.
And while I am not famous, it was some years later, I would be asked to do a walk-on role of Power, his favorite television show. And I never told him that I did it. Never told him when it would air. I just let him see it. And he called me in damn near tears and was like, well, damn, I guess you done it.
That's it.
I guess you done it.
Well, listen, Scott, I guess you did it. And it's so crazy how every time I've heard you talk, it's like I better get to understand how long it's taken, how much you had to go through to get to where you're at, and how more open you are every time you speak to new audiences, not just with me, but you've been on many other podcasts and shows, and you've had to sit in rooms where it's probably uncomfortable to talk about not just money, but the journey. And it's each time that I hear you talk that I'm like, holy shit, he has gotten to such a great honest place with himself and his career and what he's
Yeah.
chasing, that you're able to do that. The fact that you dropped that story with Oprah, I think is all anybody who's tuning in. By the way, again, thank you for clicking play. It had to hear to understand what it takes to really bring an idea or a dream to life. And you shared that with us. So thank you.
Yeah, I think, and I do want to be very, very clear. I'm certainly not saying that it takes an Oprah to
Sure.
believe alongside you in something for you to believe it enough to pursue it. But for me, in that particular case, what I was in search of was someone who had been there to invest enough in me that I could also believe, right? Like it's one thing, I think it's one thing to believe in a silo by yourself, right? Hoping that one day it will happen while really having no idea of what it will take to happen, or without any sort of base of reference for if that is even like not necessarily necessary, but like if that is even the move, right? She helped me refine the goal. She helped me make it more realistic. But she also helped me set a proper target.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That it wasn't this like arbitrary, by 25, I'm gonna make a 30 under 30 list. Like that's not sure. But like what publication do you want to be recognized by? Right? What space, what industry do you want to be active and impacting, right? What audience do you want to be making the most good for, right? Like, because that's how you make those 30 under 30 lists. And then how do you, on a daily basis, consistently and concerted effort, work toward that goal, right? So it in a lot of ways is I hope the reason I share that story is like, one, believe in your dream hard enough, loud enough, real enough to share it with somebody who can say to you, for real? Okay, well, let me just sprinkle some seasoned salt on it real quick. Yeah.
Scott Evans, thank you. You always have the right things to say. And sometimes it takes me asking one question. This podcast should really be called The One Question that then spirals to the rest of the conversation.
I mean, right.
You know what I mean?
Listen, that sounds like an excellent next effort. The one question. And then you figuring out what is the one question that will, and then that's what, whenever that question is over, that's the end of the episode.
That's it. Guys, we're going to link everything for Scott where you can find him on his website access. You can catch him on a lot of different shows through NBC Universal, and ultimately his Instagram and some of these other social handles will be in the description below. But until then, buddy, until I see you again, thank you for sharing those stories and for joining me on this episode, man.
Of course, Justin, thank you always for doing what you do the way that you do it. Can't nobody else do it how you do it. They can't. They try, but they can't do it. They can't do it.
I love you.
You just too good. You just too good. Sorry. I will on the record by saying it can't be done. So figure something else out. If you're listening to this and you're like, I'm gonna do what Justin did, cut it out right now.